Hello and welcome, fellow sovereigns. I've had two conversations with two different people who don't know each other, and both of the conversations were about totally different subjects, unrelated. The people, the conversations, and the topics. And one lives in Perth and one lives in Brisbane. So there's a link that some people might not see between these two conversations, but it was very clear to me. So the first one was that this person in Perth had decided that life is about lessons and that there's reincarnation and that we come into this life having a particular lesson and then we learn it or we don't, and then we die, we come back into another life, and if we haven't learnt the previous time, we come back and try and learn it again. If we have learnt it, we go up to another level, scale or something. And I don't disagree with it. To me, it's a possibility. But for this person, it was an absolute definite. And there's thousands of reports of what they call NDEs, near-death experiences, where people have died, gone into some other amazing place, and then been told they must come back because they've got, something else to be doing here. They've got a mission. And so, according to that evidence, there is a huge possibility that there's reincarnation and that we have lessons and there's things we must do here, or we should do. How much free will is there? So that was this person's truth. And when I tried to point out to him that that is a possibility and not a truth, there was, let's say, a reaction. Oh, no, you're wrong, because we've got all this proof. There's thousands of NDEs and there's thousands of people, philosophers and gurus and people down the ages and channeled people have told us this is what it is. There's probably an equal number of people telling us there's another way, or there's other different ways that life is. And I remember at one of these channelings that I went to many years ago, because I am 384 years old, and so I've been doing this for a little while. And a person in the audience was asking the guru, let's say, what heaven is like, what it's like to die, what happens after this time here. And the answer was that us trying to explain to you what heaven is like is like you trying to explain to an unborn child, an unborn baby, what it's like to be an adult. We cannot explain it to you. We'll do our best with the limited communication thing we have, which is words, and with the limited experience that you have had in this life. But we cannot actually tell you so that you will know what it's like, what life is about really, and what happens afterwards. It's beyond the human imagination. It's beyond the human ability to absorb. And so we must use the rudimentary tools that we have to explain to you what it's like. And so there are so many beliefs about what happens after life, if anything. There's plenty of people that say there isn't anything. We live and we die. My father was like that. We live and we die, and while we're here, we just got to make the most of it. And the best you can do with my body is bury it under the lemon tree, because then I will make a contribution with my my rotting body. And that was his belief. And Ricky Gervais, he says there's nothing after here. This is just it. And so, just because someone has a theory that is confirmed by lots of other people who have a theory, and by lots of other people who have a story, doesn't make it a truth. But that's not the point. The point is when we attach ourselves to a truth, that there is another life after this one and after this one, and we've had lots beforehand. That, when we attach to that, we lose the ability to be aware of other possibilities. And when we attach to any truth, we lose the ability to experience other possibilities. Now, the other conversation I had with a chap in Brisbane, his truth was that every human has a right to accommodation, to a house, to somewhere to live. No. Humans have no rights. There is nowhere etched in the sky that says Fred Jones must have a house. There is nowhere, there is no book of life that says this is what must happen. You must have freedom of expression, you must have a house, you must have safety, you must have... There are no rights that humans have. However, when we attach our truth to the fact that humans have rights, that humans have a right to accommodation, all we're going to do is make ourselves upset. I don't know how many people do not have houses. I know there are thousands in Australia. There are women and children living in cars. It's awful. It's dreadful. And I wish I had an answer. I wouldn't know what to say to them. I don't know how to right that awfulness. However, when I attach a law that does not exist to my psyche, which says every human must have an accommodation, it kind of limits the possibilities, and every person must have a house. Well, no, because I've seen lots of cities around the world where they have built these, let's say like a dog kennel. It's about the same size as a dog kennel, a little bit longer, a little bit nicer, but they're just big enough for a person to sleep in, and sometimes they're wooden, sometimes they're fiberglass, sometimes they're like a pitched roof, sometimes they're round like a Nissan hut. And people have built these for homeless people. And so what it is a very small place simply for someone to sleep and to store their meager belongings. And that's all it is. It's not a house. It's not a $400,000, $800,000 house. It's simply a sleeping pod, and it's somewhere safe to put their belongings, and it's somewhere safe and warm and dry to sleep. And that's a whole lot better than a park bench or a car, wherever. Because when we attach to one must have a house, we're eliminating so many other possibilities of ways of living. I mean, obviously there's hundreds of thousands of people that live in caravans and motorhomes and house trucks and all sorts of movable houses. That's a possibility. People live in caves quite happily. People live in all sorts of non-house places. But when we create a law that says everyone must have a house, we're eliminating all the other ways of being, all the other possibilities. And so in Brisbane, where there's this thing that everyone must have a house, the government says, oh, we don't have enough money to build houses. And that then means that the thinking is limited. The thinking cannot imagine and cannot encompass the possibility that they could buy non-houses, but accommodations that are smaller and able to house one person sleeping and And maybe they can build bigger ones that could accommodate somebody with 1 or 2 children. So they don't need to be houses. When we undo the law about everyone must have a house, the mind expands to other possibilities. And it's the same with every single truth that people attach to. And it's almost like everything in this world is, well, it's almost like nothing in this world is the truth. And you might say, oh, well, there's a truth that grass is green. Well, no. What you see as the colour that grass is, and you call it green, I might see it as what I would call blue. And the colour that I see grass as, which I call green, you might call that red. I don't know what you're looking at. You don't know what I'm looking at. There are so many things that we have taken for granted as a truth. And when we undo that, when we look at the possibility that there is another way, when we simply undo the truth and stand in the openness, the void, that's when creativity steps in. And that's where a lot of artists, writers, painters, inventors, that's how they come upon their original ideas. Because they've stepped out of the mainstream truth. Everyone's walking along this path. You can see millions of people walking along this path to work. This one path, this road. And one person sets off the path and goes, hey, there's another way of getting there. Let's try this. And they hop over a fence and run through the fields and skip through the daisies and say hello to the cows and get to work much happier. I don't know, it's just a silly image that came to me. And that is how new inventions arise. New possibilities come to us when we undo the truths that we know that we have set up. And I don't care, if you like, what your truth is. I may or may not see it as a possibility, but I don't care what it is. If you can undo it, it's amazing, because a truth is blinkers. A truth is blinding you to that and nothing else. It's blinding you to everything else. How did I say that? A truth is blinkers. And when we undo that which we have set our lives on, which we have set ourselves up for, this is how it is, and this is how it must be, and everyone else must conform, and that's where conflict happens. And that's possibly why artists generally don't get into warfare, because they're not competing with truths. They're stepping out of them, and they're just being in the openness, in the void, in the nothingness. And when we have this open space of nothing is correct, nothing is etched in stone, we can then start looking at the world in a totally different way. We can look at our lives in a totally different way. We can look at the way we treat people. We can look at the inventions. We can look at the structures that we have set up around us. We don't have to fight them. We simply step out of the mass traffic, watch it go by. Oh, there's all those people off on their truth, all following the same truth. There they go, there's another million. And when we're stepping out of that parade of truth and walk into another place that we don't know, we don't own it, we don't know it, we simply are experiencing it. And when we disown our truth, when we release it, let it go, and pretend for a moment that we don't know anything. I know it's a scary thought, because we like to think we're in control, and that's why people hold to their truths. because control, the illusion of control in this life is so endemic and so panic driven. To pretend, if you like, just for a moment that you know nothing, for some people that is so fearful. No, 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 this is how it is, this is how it must be, this is the way. To step into, well, I don't know what life's about. I don't know the meaning of life. I don't know the answer to these things. If someone comes to you with a problem, or to me with a problem, our first impulse generally is to, oh, okay, what's the answer? What's the answer? When we can step aside from that and say to ourselves, I do not know the answer. I think I know the answer. My kind of ego knows the answer from my past. But in this moment, in this new pristine moment, and this new pristine problem, I do not know the answer. And if we can stand in not knowing, stand in being out of control, how hard can that be? When we stand in not knowing, we might just find ourselves coming up with original ideas for homeless people, for the meaning of life, for what colour grass is, for any problem that we come across. And so someone's just sent me a message to say a house is a house is a house. That's my truth. Well, there's millions of houses. People, people make them out of all sorts of things and in all sorts of places. And people live in caves and grass houses and tin sheds and movable ones. What's a house? And in a country, well, particularly in Queensland, the weather's pretty benign. So we don't get snow and silly stuff like that here. So we don't probably need the kind of houses that we're building. But anyway, that's another. So I'm just inviting you to stand in the space of I don't know. I have no control. And just letting something else come in when we're open to the possibility that our truth may not be correct. It might be. It might not be correct. And play with it. Play with, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And see what happens. So I wish you a day of not knowing, a day of fun and without control. And I bless you and all who sail in her.